Hi, I'm Angela Non.
I'm Ariana Kempis.
And this is BRB Crying.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to BRB Crying,
A podcast hosted by two 30-something teenagers discussing what made them cry.
I'm Ariana Kempis.
I call her Arns, and I'm Angela Non.
And I call her Nins. And we will probably get into why another time. Because, those aren't the cutest nicknames. But yeah, so we are here. This is our pod. And
Thanks for listening.
yeah, thank you to all of our fans.
Our two fans.
Who are the two? Us? Yeah. So I guess we will start with, who are we even?
You know, just a couple gals.
Two gals.
Basically, we've been friends in this lifetime since we were 7 or 8.
Yeah.
But I've probably known you for all of eternity, I'm guessing.
Oh.
You know what I mean?
Oh. Did we mention this is a podcast about crying? Yeah, that's so funny. Yeah, all of eternity. Yeah, cool.
Lifelong best friends.
Lifelong best friends
who have been shooting the shit.
Oh,
literally.
Yeah.
For years.
Yeah.
I think Arns and I have always just gravitated towards one another just because we like to talk and just hear ourselves talk.
Yeah.
And I don't know. It's just been great. It's just been so wonderful to have someone listen to all my bullshit all day long.
Yeah. No.
You know?
It's
so
yeah.
Lucky you that you get to listen in on
You're
it now.
welcome.
Oh my God.
You're a fly on the wall.
Ooh.
No, yeah. So it's been 20 plus years. Well, when we were young, we were family friends. And so we were at the same parties a lot. And all the other kids would be running around. What were they even doing?
Who knows?
Foosball.
Yeah. Foosball.
No, yeah. So everyone else was playing.
Mm-hmm.
And we would just find our own little corner.
Mm-hmm.
And then we would talk for 3 or 4 hours.
Yep.
What were we talking about when we were 7 or 8? Existential crises, maybe?
Existential crises.
Probably. I honestly...
Literature.
Yes.
You know?
Yes. Yeah.
Lifelong goals.
Yeah.
At 8 years old.
And I can't tell you what we talked about.
I know that they were really good conversations.
You know what's that saying about I don't remember what they said. I just remember how they made me feel. It's kind of like that.
I'm gonna throw up.
Yeah.
But yeah, honestly.
Yeah.
It's just been a lifetime of that. Just finding someone that you're able to connect with. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of stupid how intertwined Arns in my life is, because we've come to this point now where I feel like I'm just talking to myself. We will say the same exact things, plus or minus 2 words. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Same thoughts.
No, in college, so we worked at the same place too. We went to the same.
No.
We went to the same grade school, middle school,
high school.
Yeah, high school, college. And we're here, living in the same town. But yeah, in college, we would show up to work wearing the same outfits.
I think we still do that sometimes.
God, we're not trying to be annoying.
But yeah, that's a little bit about us. Yeah. Just 2 soulmates started a pod. Yeah. I don't know.
Because why not?
Because why not?
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about what this podcast is kind of going to look like.
So I think, I know. This podcast is going to be just a weekly podcast where the two of us really get into the thick of what made us cry. And these can be topics that range from things that have happened in our personal life, things that inspired us or moved us, like books or movies or random TikToks that we come across, and just explore what it was about it that made us cry and what we think that tells us about ourselves and just how it changes our perception of the world.
why is this important? Why is crying important?
Because everyone does it. Some more than others.
Just a little.
Just a little bit. But it really is this universal experience. And yet there is so much reservation of really exploring crying and things that make us cry. And I mean, okay, the fact that you and I are doing this podcast about this subject, probably easy to guess that we're criers. Yeah. Anything can set us off. And that's not to say that I cry because my life is in shambles and I'm sad about all of these things. But it's really more so that I just find myself easily moved by things. And even though I would cry often, I realized that there were a lot of times where I would do that in private and I would almost kind of hide or not really want to share that I'm having these emotional moments. And I don't know, I feel like that's something that a lot of us do. And that could just be because being vulnerable is something that is pretty scary. And I think that there is this hesitation to explore that part of ourselves. And I also think that not wanting to share that side with other people, it also kind of speaks to my like people pleasing side of myself, where the last thing I want to do is burden someone with my emotions. And so it would just be something that I would try to just deal with on my own. I think that you and I are setting out to do this because we really just want to change this stigma around crying, that it's not something that we need to hide, or it's not a sign that we're being weak, or that it's something that's embarrassing when it happens to us. Because I think if we just take a second to think about it, the act of crying teaches us so much about ourselves. It gives you some perspective of where your heart is. What is it that's happening in your life that is bringing out this reaction in you? So yeah, it's just like a great way to understand yourself a little bit more. But in that same vein, it also really just connects us to other people, because the moment that you are sharing your emotions and you're taking that leap of faith and being vulnerable in someone, that really just does enhance your relationship with that person. Because in essence, you're allowing that person to see you. And I know that is scary, but I don't know. I hope that this podcast inspires at least one more person to have less fear with sitting in their emotions. And hopefully, as you allow yourself to explore that emotional side of yourself, then you start attracting those people that are meant to come in, because then they'll see that they have that empathy for you and feel that connection with you.
Yeah. Yeah. This kind of leads into why we decided to start this now. But when I was younger, as of 5 years ago, like I would cry anytime anyone got mad at me. And I still kind of like have this reaction. I'm sure it's buried in childhood trauma, but like at work, there was this one instance, this HR manager said something to me and it was like very factual, but I started like sobbing. And like
in front of the HR manager?
Oh, yeah. Yes. It's this gut reaction that I have. And for my entire life, I have tried so hard to suppress that. You know, my throat tightens, the tears well up, and like I can't look her in the eye. And then like automatically it's like, I'm sorry. There's an apology, right? Like, I'm sorry. I don't know why I'm crying. And I think that that's totally something that people do. When people are in public or like in the setting and they're sharing and then they start crying, it's like automatically an apology.
Or if I tell you that I had an episode where I was crying, I almost like make it a self-deprecating joke. Like, oh my God, I was being so dramatic. How silly of me. Our inclination is to like,
I'm not normally like this. And I think that that's kind of getting into why now, since we've been crying our whole lives. Why are we going to start talking about it now?
Right.
So I recently read a book and honestly changed my fucking life. And the gist being, you just have to feel your feelings. And for me, a lot of it, obviously the crying, but you know, other things too. Like I've never thought I was an angry person, but there's anger there. But yeah, so that was kind of what got me to, you know, every time I would cry, instead of suppressing it, for the first time, I think, I would sit there And then I would feel it. I would feel it all. And I would just allow myself, like, I think permission was this key word there, like permission to feel what I was feeling. Because in that same vein, when you allow yourself to feel like the bad, you also just broaden that bandwidth to feel the good too. And that was part of this whole exercise that I was doing of like feeling my feelings. I realized that in the same way I was suppressing my tears, I was also suppressing my dreams. And there was this one drive on my way to work where I just started like just saying out loud everything that I think I've always had inside me. Like, I want to do this, but I hadn't ever dared voice it. And I did. And one of the top things that came up was I want to talk and write and get paid to do it. Or, not necessarily like get paid to do it, but like, no, you know what? I'm not going to, no, I am not going to
sponsor us.
No, but you know what I mean? It's just that idea of how dare I, who am
right.
I to think that? But like, yeah, like I want to do that. So after admitting to myself, allowing myself to think about, like I love to talk and write, then the first thing I thought about was how a few years ago now, you were like, hey, we should do a podcast about crying. Because we're always fucking crying.
Yeah. And having amazing conversations too.
Yeah. Yeah, but you, and then at least 3 years ago, where you brought it up, and it was always a joke, right? Like, oh my God, wouldn't that be so funny? Like, blah, blah. But then we started accumulating lists. Like, I think we both separately were doing this, right?
Yeah.
Like, lists of things that would make us cry.
Just in case we ever decided.
Yeah. Yeah, and so when I thought about, like, I would love to just talk, I would love to bullshit. That was when I texted you and I was like, hey, remember when you were like, we should do a podcast? So like, we should do a podcast.
Yeah.
I felt so sure about it. It's like it had been percolating in the back of my mind, but I had never felt ready. And I just feel like I'm in a place now where I think if we had done this in the past, it would have been very much the self-deprecating. Like, oh my God, I'm so dumb because I cried about this thing. But now I think it's coming from a much more wholesome place where it's like, no, let's talk about our feelings because we don't talk about our feelings enough. And I think that's kind of why it felt so right to do it now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I'll just add that as you were going through that journey, I was also going through my own kind of journey. And I think you're right. When we had first come up with the idea, I don't know, we were like 27, 28 or something like that. And absolutely, I don't think I was in the right place to take on a project like this because I 100% think that I was in this frame of mind where I had to strive for success. I had to be the best at everything. And the fear of setting out to do a podcast when there's a million of them out there and I would just be so embarrassed to even try to do something that I know that I'm not good at. Or, I know that I'm doing for the first time.
Yeah.
But now that I'm 31 and know everything, I'm now at this place where what I know is that I don't have to be the best at everything. And what is more important is just feeling proud of something that you're doing, regardless of it's number one, you know?
Yeah.
And when you sent me that text and you're like, hey, do you really want to do this? I was like, yeah, let's do it. Because you're right. It just felt so right. It felt like the timing had finally hit its mark because we were both realizing what this project would mean to us, not for any external validation or not for any sort of reward or superficial measures of success. We knew that this podcast was something that we were going to be passionate about, that would fulfill us and that would allow us to explore the side that we have both individually been very curious about. So yeah, I think you and I both talked about like we were just waiting for the other one to like pull the trigger. And once you did, we were 100% in.
Okay, so now that we've kind of talked about why we're doing this and why now, we should just get into the meat of it. Would you like to start us off?
Let me do this. Let me talk about what made me cry. So I have a personal story for you today.
Okay.
The cry level of this situation, I would say, if we're scaling it from 1 being teary-eyed and 10 being like, I cannot breathe, I would say this is a soft 3,
Okay.
maybe 4.
Okay.
And it was more of like a heartwarming cry.
Yeah.
I just felt very moved
Yeah.
by this.
Yeah.
So I'm going to tell you about a dream that I had.
Ooh.
But before I jump into the dream, I think I got to provide some context and just kind of explain why this was significant for me. So I got married 2 years ago.
Really?
I got married 2 years ago to my high school sweetheart,
Okay.
like a loser. And
Sorry.
yeah, I've been with him forever. And especially when we got engaged and leading up to the wedding and shortly after the wedding, obviously the number one question that we got all the time was, oh my God, like, are you guys going to have kids now? Like, when are you guys going to have a baby? Like, are you trying? Are you pregnant? And I think that the people who know me had seen that I've been very honest about where I stand with the thought of having children. And that is that I don't feel ready.
Yeah.
I think for a very long time, I realized that I didn't really have that strong longing to be a mother. And, you know, there's several reasons, but I just knew that if I ever decided to have a child, it wouldn't be because I felt this pressure or I just assumed that that was what I had to do because that's just the typical next step once you're married and once you're starting to build your own life. And I loved the idea of like deciding to have a kid and doing it because every ounce of your being just wants that child so much. And I just didn't feel that I was in that place. And like I said, there's more than one reason for that, but one of them is because I just didn't feel ready. And what I mean by that is that I am still on this journey of learning to love myself and grow into this evolved person. And I just thought it would be so silly of me to try to like bring a child into this world and instill in them this self-love and this confidence when I myself was still struggling with that. I didn't know how to like teach this beautiful and perfect child that they were in fact beautiful and perfect when I felt so far removed from that place. So I don't know, it hasn't been something that's been on my radar. Like I knew that I had to do a lot of self-reflection and a lot of just evolving on my own before I felt I was in the proper mindset to do this. So that's kind of like where I am. So yeah, today, if you were to ask me like 100%, I would tell you I don't feel ready. And that's fine. But that doesn't stop a girl from looking for signs, you know? Like we love a sign.
We love a sign.
We love a sign from the spirit guide. Like
Yeah.
I'll stand in front of my microwave at 11:10 and wait until it says 11:11.
Yeah.
I'd be like, bitch, sign, you know, like.
Yeah.
So anyway, like, yeah, I've still been, you know, just on the lookout for things that could perhaps be telling me a message about am I on the right path? And, you know, are things going to work out? They always do. But, you know, still trying to be in tune with that. So for this dream of mine, I dreamt that I was walking into an office and the office was actually a construction trailer, which sounds random, but I worked in general contracting for like 6 years. So that was my perception of what an office is.
Yeah.
It's basically just like a temp trailer, but there's an office inside. And I walked inside and there was a girl there and she was like maybe a teenager and she was wearing a hard hat and a vest and she was looking at drawings. And I like walked in and I saw her and I was like, I think this might be my daughter. And I was just kind of floored because she was so beautiful and she was so sure of herself. She was looking at these drawings, standing in the middle of the room, and I just was overwhelmed with this sense of pride. Like, I was like, oh my God, look at her. She's doing it. She's amazing. She's killing it. I'm so proud of her. We didn't even like interact in the dream. It was really just me observing her. And that was pretty much the dream. I woke up and a bitch loves journaling. So she took out her journal and, I woke up and I was like, oh my God, is this a sign? Is this my spirit guide telling me that this is my future? So I'm like writing in the journal and I'm describing this girl. And then I had this bigger realization as I was writing it. Is this my daughter? And then I thought, oh no, that girl was me. I was looking at myself. I was looking at this girl and saying, oh my God, look at this beautiful person that I am so proud of, who is accomplishing what she set out to do. Like, this bitch was literally wearing a hard hat and vest, which is like what I wore every day for 6 years, And like, I just imagine my spirit guide like, no,
Hello.
this is you.
Can I be any clearer?
So yeah, it was just such a wonderful realization because I think that we forget to look at ourselves from the perspective of someone who loves us, someone who doesn't see these insecurities that we have about ourselves, who doesn't care about the things that we feel we haven't perfected. So yeah, I just thought it was such a wonderful reminder to myself to just be more gentle, to allow myself to be proud of myself and to not focus on the things that I have yet to accomplish, like not worry about that. Because once you remove your own insecurities and you can see like, how far you've gone, like, God, that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm proud of you. Yeah, no, I mean, God, wow. That's going to fuck me up for a little bit. It's just going to like like I'm sure you've been like thinking about it, but I'm just now wrapping my head around that.
Yeah.
But that practice of speaking to yourself the way you would you as a child, right? Like when you think about it that way, it's like, oh my God, why would you ever say those terrible things to yourself? Protect her. She's beautiful. She has a whole world ahead of her. And she still does,
Yeah. Arns texted me before this episode. She's like, I don't think I'm going to cry. Okay.
Okay, I don't want to set this precedent of like, oh my God, I'm going to cry every episode. Like, no, please don't expect this.
No, we don't have to get this emotional. No. I just thought this was a great way to just kind of share a little bit about who I am and where I'm at. Because I can imagine that there's so many of us out there that are in the same place at this uncertainty and just not knowing what our life is going to look like and being so anxious about it. So yeah, I feel the same way. And I hope that there are things in your life that send you the same heartwarming message that I got from that dream.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that.
Thanks for listening. All right, Arns, what do you got for me?
Today I'm talking about two things that made me cry.
Ooh.
I happen to be consuming this content at the same time, and they are pretty unrelated on the surface, but I actually found some common themes. I was reading this book, and I'm watching this show at the same time.
Not a book that was adapted
No.
show.
Okay. Unrelated.
Got it.
So the book is A Man Called Ove, which I know you've read because I checked your Goodreads. And the show is Avatar, The Last Airbender.
Which I've never seen.
I know. Yeah, I know. So I guess to give some context, a spoiler alert. Well, okay. Like the things that made me cry aren't huge plot points, but in case you're the kind of person like me who wants to know absolutely nothing going into a book or a show, like I don't like spoilers in any sense. So fair warning, but I'm just going to give a little bit of context. And since I'm talking about two things, I won't go too deep into either. So A Man Called Ove, I think it's actually pronounced Uva. But you know what? You know like how people will be like, oh, I would like a croissant. No, I'm going to say Ove. A Man Called Ove is about a man called Ove. And he is, he's gruff and he's a little standoffish. Some readers have speculated that he's autistic. But the author, Fredrik Backman.
Great guy. Love him.
Love him. Yeah. Freddie. He has not confirmed any of that. But he says like he's not a doctor. He's not going to give like medical diagnoses, right? But he did say he wrote the character kind of modeled a little bit after himself because he's kind of felt a little not ordinary, I guess. So it's obviously an incredible book about a man who is trying to plot his own demise, but his plans keep getting comically foiled by his pregnant neighbor and her family and all these busybodies who he's like, oh my God, blah, blah, blah. They're so annoying. But like his hardened heart, they're just chiseling away at that. But the reason why, and this is the spoiler, I guess, the reason why he's like that is because his wife has died. And let me just say that when I was thinking about these two things in tandem, I started getting like really intellectual about it. Like, oh, blah, 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 the parallel, And then I realized, no, I'm just going to talk about what fucking made me cry about it. And like, that's it. Because I feel like that's kind of the approach I want to take with this podcast. At least for myself, I'm not going to like try and explicate the shit out of it.
Yeah, this is not a theology class. This is two friends talking out of their asses.
Yeah, and while we are annoyingly academic sometimes, I kind of want to like pull back from that. So when he talks about his wife, maybe I will cry. Oh. It's very simple. Like his pain is very simple. I have two quotes that I wrote down in my illegible handwriting. I'll read both of them. So, of all the imaginable things he misses most about her, the thing he really wishes he could do again is hold her hand in his. She had a way of folding her index finger into his palm, hiding it inside. And he always felt that nothing in the world was impossible when she did that. Of all the things he could miss, that's what he misses most. It's just like a simple gesture. And then that's kind of similar in this one. Ove closes his eyes and thinks of Sonia. It's not that he's the sort of man who gives up and dies. He doesn't want her to think that. But it's actually wrong, all this. She married him. And now he doesn't quite know how to carry on without the tip of her nose. Sorry. Me apologizing. The tip of her nose in the pit between his throat and his shoulder. That's all. And I just thought that was really a beautifully simple.
It's just so Fredrik Backman style. He just says very literal things, and it's really up to you as the reader to deduce how poignant these small physical descriptions of what's happening in the physical world actually mean so much more.
And when he says that's all, like it's like that's all, he's but it's not that's all, it's everything. When we lose people, and obviously everyone deals with grief differently, like there's just a lot of things that you don't even realize in real time that you would miss about someone, and it sucks. Like, wow, like I just miss that little thing. So that's one of my two things. And then Avatar. So I was, the same time as I was reading this novel, I was watching Avatar, The Last Airbender, the live action version. I have some qualms, so I actually didn't even finish it.
Me either. I'm not a hater. I just don't watch TV. Sorry.
It reminded me of one of my favorite characters in the whole series. And so I guess I'll give you a little context of Avatar. There's the Avatar who is the master of the four elements, and he brings peace to the lands. But he's like missing for 100 years. He's like frozen, and like maybe this is too much detail for you. But basically, he's missing, and
there's
like
someone listening, like that's not enough. You're forgetting this.
I know. I'm so sorry to all the super fans. And while he's gone, one of the nations starts to wage war on all of them. The Fire Nation wages war on the other 3 nations. So this Fire Lord, sorry, that just sounds kind of ridiculous. So he's a dick and he banishes his son. He's like, you can't come back until you find this avatar and like kill him.
Okay.
Very high level.
Okay.
But so basically, like, I'm not even talking about the A plot. Like, what made me cry is this B plot. So this B plot, this kid, Zuko, Prince, I should say, voiced in the original one by Dante Basco. But he has this uncle, Uncle Iroh. And this is who I'm talking about today. And this uncle is, crowd favorite, so wise. Even though he's from this nation that's waging war, like, he's so grounding. He's this presence for Zuko and for everyone too. He's one of those characters where like, you feel like he should have a side, but like he's just so above that. But anyway, so the episode that I'm talking about, this is not from the live action. This is from the original 2005 version. It's an episode in season 2 called The Tales of Ba Sing Se. And it's really cute. It's like a vignette. Like every one of the characters has their own little thing.
Okay.
It's like one of those episodes.
For all you super fans.
Yeah, for all you super fans. So Iroh's little vignette. He goes to the market and he's like, he wants to buy a picnic basket. He's like, it's a special day. And then all these things happen on his way to his special occasion. Like there's this little kid crying. And so Iroh comes and he gets a guitar and he starts singing this song to cheer him up. There's this other scene where these kids are getting in trouble and he's like, go and run. And then he gets mugged. Like this guy comes around the corner, tries to mug him. And instead of getting mad at this guy, he's like, oh, like you should really correct your stance. Adjusting him, like, this is how you should be more threatening. And then the scene ends with him, like, you would be a great masseur. And the guy's like, really? No one's ever believed in me. So it's like, gives you a sense of like, this dude, he's so good. And at the end of his little vignette, I swear to God, it's like 5 minutes. It's so short, but he goes to the top of this little hill and he takes his picnic basket. He opens everything up and he creates this shrine. And he's like, happy birthday, my son. I wish I could have helped you the way I helped everyone else. And he sings this little song, which I probably cannot share for copyright purposes.
Wait, what happened to his son?
I'm sorry. I assumed you watched it all like me. His son died in the war. So this war that his own nation is waging, his own son died. And so people accuse him of like, you don't have any empathy. And he was like, no, and this is where I really felt both of these stories connect. They're both so quiet in their pain. They don't show it, but it's intense for them. Just because they're not so outwardly showing it, it doesn't mean it hurts any less. And I'll just end with the little song he sang. It won't have the same effect. Well, okay, yeah. I'll give you a sense of the melody. It was like, leaves from the vine falling so slow. So, leaves from the vine falling so slow, like fragile tiny shells drifting in the foam. Little soldier boy, come marching home. Brave soldier boy comes marching home. And yeah, I don't know. I just like, Avatar, like Uncle Iroh. Yeah, I don't know. It's just really poignant. These two guys who are just living their lives, like as audience members, people consuming this content. We only know them after this loss happens. And so, I don't know, there's something about that. Like, yeah, it sucks, but also this loss is part of them and we get to know them and love them.
I don't think you did this on purpose, but I think that really just speaks to, again, why we think this subject is so important. Because these are two characters that are very staunchly stoic.
They're not shouting their pain from the rooftops.
Yeah. So you, as someone who is coming across these characters, just kind of take it for face value and assume that there isn't anything underneath except for what they're projecting. And you just dig a little deeper and you realize this well of emotion, this well of experiences that they've had that they're just kind of harboring for themselves. But look how moved we are when we just get a little glimpse.
Exactly. And I think it's because they have that wall up that when they show that little glimpse, like, ooh, you know, like, ooh, it hurts. Like it hurt. Not that it hurts even more, but like it speaks volumes.
Yeah.
So I think we'll wrap it up here. And thank you all for listening, even if it's just one of you, you know?
Thank you to my husband who I forced to listen to this.
I don't even think I can force my husband to listen to this. He might not listen. That's fine. So thank you to Angela's husband, our listener. No, truly, like, thank you to everyone who does listen to this for sticking it out with us to the end. And I hope you feel at home with us too as we share. And I hope that maybe you laughed, maybe you cried, but hopefully it got you thinking a little bit. And maybe I shouldn't even say thinking. Maybe hopefully it got you feeling a little bit. We would obviously love your support if you could rate, review, and subscribe to our pod. We are brbcrying.podcast on all socials. And our website is brbcryingpodcast.com. You can send us a little note if you felt something, or you can email us, hello@brbcryingpodcast.com.
Just give us a little shout.
A little shout.
But only if it's 5 stars.
Only if it's 5 stars. Anything less, I'll find a way to delete it.
But yeah, thank you, Arns, for summarizing that. I really hope that if only one person took something away from this, my husband, then I will feel proud of this and proud of us.
Mm-hmm. Me
so tune in next week for another episode. We will be back.
We will.
We will keep crying.
We will. Well, yeah. No, yeah. I was going to say, like, I don't know if you can count on me to cry every episode, but I don't know. Like, I kind of like we got
You're so confident that you're not going to cry.
I know. Like, every week I'm just going to be like, I'm not going to cry. But why? Why am I doing it? That's another episode. Let's explore that,
Yeah. But until then,
BRB crying.